Basically, Vikram wants India to reclaim its history from Delhi, from Macaulay's children,
there I'm with.
from those who in the Nehruvian age, he believes, whitewashed history and didn't tell the little subaltern histories. I could add a number of other names, Suhail Dev,
Yes.
who took on, the Ghazdis. There are many others whose names come out. Is that true somewhere? Or do you believe he's taking an extreme position and going to the extent where now I read Maharana Pratap actually defeated Akbar in the Battle of Haldigadi, which is a plain lie, but it suits a particular form of history writing.
So this is precise. I'm with Vikram halfway. That is, much of what he said in the first half of his response, I agree totally with, and I have myself in my own way expressed the same concern that there's a whole lot of Indian history we've not been able to reclaim. I studied in Bombay, Calcutta, and Delhi, and I didn't learn a line about the Vijayanagar Empire, and even less about the Cholas, the Pallavas, and so on. Whereas, as Vikram points out, the smallest dynasties in Delhi, we learned by heart their dates. So there is certainly a Delhi-centric vision of Indian history teaching. But on the last part of what Vikram said, I have a profound disagreement. I think that what we have to look at is that when we came to independence, we really did not choose to be a mirror image of Pakistan. Pakistan used history to forge this rather intolerant idea. I've met Pakistanis who are horrified to realize that the history they read. There is even an excellent book by a Pakistani historian comparing the history that was taught in Indian schools up to the 70s and what was taught in Pakistani schools. Where in Pakistan it was all about hatred of Hindus, the glorious 5,000-year history of Islam in India, etc., etc., and essentially a denial of any syncretism. Whereas in India, history, and I know you don't fully approve of this, but history was pressed into the nation-building project, in the service of nation-building. And so there was a desire to elide over some of the more unpleasant details, destruction of temples, some of the horrors that happened, while at the same time stressing on the commonalities, the cooperation, the harmony that also featured throughout the same periods. And I think that was a laudable objective in a country like ours. First of all, unlike Pakistan, we were a democracy. Second, unlike Pakistan, we were a much more pluralistic society. We had to knit together people of various differences. And we didn't feel, I shouldn't say we, I was a kid myself at the time, the nation didn't feel that accentuating remembered divisions would have been the right way to go if you're knitting a nation together. And to my mind, that was actually the right choice. Today, what's happening is we are scratching at wounds that had actually healed. And you're reopening, and fresh sort of drops of blood are emerging from scars that should have been allowed to heal. Let sleeping dogmas lie would have been my preferred option. But unfortunately, this is where we're going.
That might have been the case, Dr. Tharoor, I think, in the immediate decades after independence. But I think, have the wounds really healed? That's also the question. This, as I said...
Are we allowing them to heal, Vikram?
Well, I mean, sometimes just talking the truth, Ubuntu and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which South Africa did, of course, the victims and perpetrators, they were alive, and so they could come face to face. But I think it's a civilizational wound and a civilizational victim. I'll just give one example. I mean, we were the greatest... universities in the world, the Oxfords and Princetons of the world in Vikramshila, Takshashila, Nalanda. And when Nalanda was, vandalized, books burned for 1 year, they say. There was so much of manuscripts and books by this bigoted Bakhtiyar Khilji. Today, if you go out of Nalanda, the ruins, the town is Bakhtiyarpur. The station there is Bakhtiyarpur station. In which country of the world will a person who actually desecrated your temple of knowledge be actually valorized? And also, by doing this, I think somewhere we're putting the albatross of these invasions on the neck of a young Indian Muslim man or woman who is not responsible for the invasions of Ghazni, Ghori, Aurangzeb, and Tipu Sultan and all these. If, like in the morning, Mr. Arif Muhammad Khan was telling you, Rajdeep, that a Muslim need not represent a Muslim in parliament or assemblies. Similarly, you need not have an icon created for the community who belongs to the same community. You can have anybody else. But even if you want to have, Muslim icons for the community, you have a range of others, from Rahim to Kabir to Raskhan to Sant Shishunal Sharif to APJ Abdul Kalam to Mr. Arif Muhammad Khan. There's so many others. Why would you assume that talking about the atrocities of Aurangzeb or Tipu Sultan Khan or Ghazni is going to make the Indian Muslim feel very, bad about. Just 2 days back, you had Anas Haqqani who put out a tweet celebrating the fact that, they went to the shrine of the Mazar of Ghazni, Mahmud Ghazni, and also gloated over the fact that he crushed the Somnath idol. So are we not doing, in some way, putting that same seed of, separatism that we are trying to whitewash these invaders only so that you feel nice and you feel integrated into the society? I don't think that.
Is it about whitewashing or is it about demonization? The moment a road is named after Aurangzeb or, you've got a city like Aurangabad, immediately remove it. So you're moving from whitewashing history, as you call it whitewashing that was going on, to now deliberately looking for those figures through whom you can demonize a community. So we seem to be moving from one extreme to the other extreme.
Why should the community get
Vikram, one
demonized?
second on that one, because it's a very important point. When this thuggish group called the Hindu Sena recently defaced some road signs, it was no longer about what a particular ruler did, right? So you want Aurangzeb Road renamed for the same reason you'd want Bakhtiarpur renamed, and I understand that. But Akbar, there couldn't have been a greater example of the kind of ideal king in that particular period of time. And his was defaced, so the only thing that mattered is that he was Muslim. So they came and defaced the signs for Akbar Road. And I said, well, what do they even understand about history? What are they doing? So when you ask, rightly, why is today's Muslim feeling offended when Ghazni or Ghori are denounced? The answer is because it is instrumentalized to demonize them today. You talk to Muslims who have absolutely no affinity for Ghazni or Ghori, but they're the ones being aggressed. After all, when some poor fellow is walking down the street and he's beaten within an inch of his life and told to say Jai Shri Ram, that's not my Hindu dharma, Vikram. And that's also not what building a democratic society in India can possibly be about.
Which is why I said I think the wounds haven't healed, and it's so easy to bring these out. So a truth and reconciliation commission where we set all this, as I said, world over, history offers these spaces where people can talk these uncomfortable truths, heal from it, learn from past mistakes, and move on. I think we have not made peace with our past, and that is why it keeps resurfacing every now and then as a cancerous growth from the
No, but
holy
whose
politics.
truth? Whose truth?